You know what? I'm absolutely sick of people acting like what happened on SmackDown was just another backstage brawl. I'm tired of the so-called experts downplaying what Jade Cargill just did to Rhea Ripley. This wasn't a fight, this wasn't a rivalry getting physical, this was a statement. This was a calculated, vicious, and downright brutal assault that left one of WWE's most dominant women laid out like she'd been hit by a freight train. And yet, I'm seeing fans online acting like this is just business as usual. Are you kidding me right now? Let me paint you a picture of what actually went down, because clearly some of you need a reality check. Rhea Ripley, the woman who has destroyed everyone in her path, the woman who held the Women's World Championship for 380 days, the woman who makes grown men nervous when she walks into a room, was left broken on that concrete floor. And the person who did it? Jade Cargill. The same Jade Cargill who some of you were saying wasn't ready for WWE just months ago. The same woman people claimed couldn't hang with the main roster. Well, she just hung Rhea Ripley out to dry, and I want to know right now in the comments, do you still think Jade isn't ready? Because what I saw on Friday night tells a completely different story. Here's what makes this whole situation absolutely insane. Rhea wasn't even involved in any storyline with Jade. There was no build-up, no Twitter beef, no stare-downs during matches, nothing. Rhea was literally just walking backstage, minding her own business after her segment, probably thinking about her next move in whatever feud she's currently in. And then bam, out of nowhere, Jade Cargill appeared like some kind of wrestling Grim Reaper and decided that Friday night was the night Rhea Ripley's world was going to come crashing down. The attack itself was something straight out of a horror movie. Jade didn't just throw a few punches and walk away. She didn't just shove Rhea into a wall and talk trash. No, no, no. This woman went full force with an intent that was absolutely chilling. She grabbed Rhea from behind, spun her around, and before Rhea could even process what was happening, Jade unleashed a series of strikes that would make Brock Lesnar proud. We're talking about closed fists to the face, forearms to the jaw, knees to the midsection. Rhea tried to fight back, she always fights back, but Jade was like a woman possessed. And here's where it gets even more brutal. Just when you thought maybe Jade would back off, maybe give Rhea a chance to recover, she grabbed Ripley by her signature black hair and slammed her face first into one of those production crates. The sound, oh my god, the sound that echoed through that backstage area was sickening. You could hear it through the cameras, through the chaos, through everything. It was the sound of bone meeting metal, and it was brutal, but Jade wasn't done. Not even close. She dragged Rhea's barely conscious body across that concrete floor like she was nothing more than a rag doll. The nightmare, the woman who has ragdolled opponents herself for years, was being treated like she weighed nothing. Jade then proceeded to lift Rhea up and deliver what can only be described as a modified Jaded, her signature pump kick, right into a stack of equipment boxes. The impact was so severe that the boxes collapsed under Rhea's body weight, and she just laid there, motionless. Now, I want you to comment below and tell me, have you ever seen Rhea Ripley look that vulnerable? Have you ever seen the woman who terrorized the entire women's division looking completely helpless? Because I haven't. And that's what makes this attack so significant, so game-changing, so absolutely shocking that we need to talk about every single aspect of it. Let's talk about the aftermath for a second. WWE officials rushed to the scene, medical personnel were called immediately, and there was genuine concern on everyone's faces. This wasn't kayfabe concern, this wasn't acting for the cameras. You could see it in the eyes of the referees, the producers, even some of the other wrestlers who came to check on Rhea. There was real worry. Adam Pearce, WWE's official, was on his phone immediately, presumably calling for more help, and you could see him looking at Jade with a mixture of shock and anger that felt absolutely authentic. And Jade? She just stood there, no emotion, no remorse, no explanation. She looked down at what she had done to Rhea Ripley with the cold, calculated stare of someone who had just completed a mission. She didn't run away like a coward. She didn't celebrate like a maniac. She simply stood there, breathing heavily, her muscles still tensed from the assault, and then she just walked away. Slowly, methodically, like she had all the time in the world. Like she wanted everyone to see what she had done. Like she wanted to send a message not just to Rhea, but to everyone in that women's locker room. Here's the question that everyone needs to be asking: why? Why did Jade Cargill specifically target Rhea Ripley? What could have possibly motivated this level of violence? And I've got some theories that are going to blow your mind, so make sure you're paying attention because this goes deep. Theory number 1, and this is the most obvious one: Jade wants to establish herself as the dominant force in WWE's women's division. Think about it. Who's been the most dominant woman in WWE for the past 2 years? Rhea Ripley. Hands down, no debate. She's held titles, she's main event premium live events, she's been in angles with the biggest stars in the company. If you're Jade Cargill and you want to make a statement that you're not just another pretty face with muscles, that you're not just the next big thing but the thing, who do you take out? You take out the woman at the top. You don't work your way up, you skip the line by eliminating the biggest threat. Theory number 2, and this one's a bit more complex, there's been backstage tension that we don't know about. Think about when Jade first arrived in WWE. There were reports, rumors, whispers about how certain members of the women's locker room felt about her getting such a massive push so quickly. Now, I'm not saying Rhea was one of those people, but what if there's been something brewing behind the scenes? What if there were words exchanged, disrespect shown, or professional jealousy that we as fans never got to see? What if this attack was Jade settling a score that's been building for months? Theory number 3, and this is where things get really interesting, what if someone put Jade up to this? What if this wasn't just about Jade and Rhea? What if there's a third party involved, someone pulling strings, someone who wants Rhea Ripley out of the picture? Think about all the people Rhea has crossed, all the enemies she's made, all the championships she's held. Is it really that far-fetched to think that someone would recruit Jade Cargill, the one woman physically capable of taking Rhea down, to do their dirty work? I want you to comment below right now and tell me which theory you think is correct, or if you've got your own theory, lay it on me. Because this is the kind of storyline that has so many layers, so many possible directions, and I want to hear what the Wrestling Zone community thinks is really going on here. Let's talk about what this means for both women moving forward. For Rhea Ripley, this is uncharted territory. She's been the hunter for so long, the aggressor, the one who strikes first and asks questions never. Now, for the first time in a long time, she's the prey. She's the one who got caught off guard. She's the one who got destroyed. And knowing Rhea, knowing her personality, knowing how she operates, this is going to eat at her. This is going to consume her. Rhea Ripley doesn't lose, she doesn't get embarrassed, and she certainly doesn't get attacked without retribution. The question is, how does Rhea respond? Does she come back next week with an even more vicious attack on Jade? Does she wait, plan, and strike when Jade least expects it? Or does this attack do something we've never seen before? Does it actually make Rhea question herself? Does it plant a seed of doubt in the mind of the nightmare? Because let me tell you something, if Jade Cargill managed to get into Rhea Ripley's head, if she managed to make Rhea second-guess herself even for a moment, then this attack was even more successful than we initially thought. For Jade Cargill, this changes everything. Before Friday night, she was impressive. She was winning matches, she was looking dominant, but there was always that lingering question, can she handle the top-level competition? Can she hang with the absolute best that WWE has to offer? Well, she just answered that question with the most emphatic yes possible. She didn't just beat Rhea in a match where there's a referee and rules and ways to escape. She hunted her down in her own territory and demolished her with no one able to stop it. This instantly makes Jade Cargill one of the most dangerous women in all of WWE. Not just in the women's division, in all of WWE. Because what she proved on Friday night is that she's not bound by conventional wrestling rules. She's not going to wait for her title opportunity. She's not going to politely work her way up the card. She's taking what she wants, and she's willing to end careers to get it. Now, let's address something that some fans are going to bring up, and I want to shut this down immediately. I'm already seeing comments online saying this was too much or that WWE is going too far with women's wrestling violence. To those people, I say wake up. This is 2025. Women's wrestling has evolved. These are athletes, these are performers who are just as capable of telling intense, physical, violent stories as the men. The days of women being restricted to hair-pulling and slap fights are long gone, and frankly, they should be. What Jade did to Rhea is no different than what we've seen male superstars do to each other for decades. It's no different than Stone Cold hitting Vince McMahon with a bedpan. It's no different than Randy Orton punting people's heads. It's no different than any of the legendary backstage brawls that we celebrate and immortalize in wrestling history. So if you have a problem with women telling the same caliber of stories, then the problem isn't with WWE, the problem is with your outdated perspective. Comment below if you agree or disagree with me on this, because I'm genuinely curious where the Wrestling Zone audience stands on the evolution of women's wrestling and the type of storytelling we should be seeing in this era. Let's talk about the implications for the rest of the women's division. Every single woman in that locker room just got put on notice. Bianca Belair, Bayley, Charlotte Flair when she returns, Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan, every single woman who has aspirations of being at the top just watched what happened to the person who was at the top. And the message is clear: nobody is safe. Not the toughest, not the most decorated, not the most intimidating. Jade Cargill just proved that she can and will take out anyone who stands in her way. This creates an interesting dynamic because now you have to wonder, do other women in the division try to align themselves with Jade to avoid her wrath? Do they try to form alliances to take her down together? Or does everyone just put a target on her back and try to be the one who gets revenge for Rhea? The political landscape of the women's division just got turned completely upside down, and the ramifications of this attack are going to be felt for months, maybe even years. Here's another angle I haven't seen anyone talking about yet. What about Jade's current partnerships and alliances? She's been aligned with Bianca Belair and Naomi in recent weeks. They've been working together, having success as a unit. But after this attack, do they condone what she did? Do they support this level of violence? Or do they distance themselves from Jade, realizing that she's willing to go to places they are not comfortable with? This could be the beginning of Jade's complete isolation in WWE, where she becomes this lone wolf destroyer who trusts no one and answers to no one. Let me ask you this in the comments: would you want Jade Cargill as your ally or your enemy? Because after what we saw on Friday night, I'm not sure which is scarier. Now, let's get into the technical aspects of this attack because there's something absolutely brilliant about how it was shot and presented. The camera work was chaotic but deliberate. You felt the panic, you felt the urgency, but you also got every devastating impact. This wasn't some poorly shot backstage segment where you can't tell what's happening. This was cinematic. The handheld camera shakiness added to the realism. The quick cuts during the most violent moments protected both performers while still conveying the brutality, and that final shot of Rhea lying motionless with Jade standing over her was absolutely haunting. WWE's production team deserves credit for making this feel real. In an era where everything in wrestling is so polished and choreographed that sometimes it loses that raw edge, this attack felt genuine. It felt dangerous. It felt like something that wasn't supposed to happen, even though we know it was all carefully planned and executed. That's the magic of professional wrestling when it's done right. What about the timing of this attack? Royal Rumble season is coming up. WrestleMania season follows shortly after. This is the time when WWE starts building their biggest storylines for their biggest shows. Is this the beginning of a program that culminates at WrestleMania? Jade Cargill vs. Rhea Ripley on the grandest stage of them all? Because if WWE is smart, and let's be honest, they usually are these days, that's exactly where this is heading. Imagine the video package. Imagine the build-up. Imagine these two physical specimens, these two absolutely dominant forces in women's wrestling, going to war at WrestleMania. The promos would be incredible. The match would be brutal. The crowd would be absolutely electric. This has main event potential written all over it, and that attack on Friday night might have just planted the seeds for one of the biggest women's wrestling matches in WWE history. But here's what worries me, and I want your opinion on this in the comments. Is WWE going to pull the trigger on this, or are they going to do what they sometimes do and get distracted by something else? Are they going to let this simmer and build properly, or are they going to rush it and blow it off at the next premium live event? Because this storyline, this rivalry, deserves the slow burn. It deserves time to develop, to marinate, to become something truly special. Let's also consider Rhea's potential allies in this situation. Damian Priest and Rhea have history. They were Terror twins. They've had each other's backs. Does Priest get involved? Does he try to even the odds? Or is this something Rhea needs to handle on her own to prove that she can still be the dominant force in the women's division? And what about other members of Judgment Day, past or present? Do they factor into this equation? On the flip side, does Jade recruit backup? Does she align herself with someone who can watch her back while she continues her path of destruction? Or does she remain this unstoppable solo force that doesn't need anyone? Both directions have interesting possibilities, and both would create completely different dynamics for this feud moving forward. Here's something else that's fascinating: the social media reaction. Rhea Ripley's Twitter/X feed, her Instagram, they are usually full of confident, intimidating posts. She's the one who talks trash, who posts victorious pictures, who maintains this aura of invincibility. But after this attack, radio silence. That's powerful storytelling in the modern era. The absence of her usual social media presence speaks volumes about the impact of what Jade did to her. It tells us that this wasn't just a physical beating, it was a psychological one. Meanwhile, Jade's social media has been cryptic but calculated. No direct references to the attack, no explicit gloating, just subtle posts that could be interpreted as connected to what she did. That's the mark of someone playing the game at a high level. She's not overdoing it, she's not explaining herself, she's letting her actions speak louder than any words could. I want to know from you in the comments, what should Rhea's first social media post after this attack be? What should she say? Should she stay silent longer and let the anticipation build, or should she immediately fire back with a response that lets Jade know she made a huge mistake? Let's talk about something that might be controversial. Was this attack too effective? Did WWE make Jade look so dominant and Rhea look so vulnerable that it's going to be hard to maintain balance in their eventual matches? Because here's the thing, when you have one person destroy another this completely, you risk creating a situation where fans don't believe the person who got destroyed can come back and win. WWE has to be very careful about how they book Rhea's recovery and eventual revenge. The best case scenario is that this attack lights a fire under Rhea that makes her even more dangerous than she was before. The attack becomes the catalyst for her evolution into something even more intense, more focused, more brutal. She channels this embarrassment, this pain, this humiliation into becoming an even better version of herself. That's how you turn a decisive loss or attack into a positive for a character's development. The worst case scenario is that WWE doesn't adequately address the power dynamic they just created. If Rhea comes back next week and just immediately gets her revenge with no consequences, no struggle, no real effort, then what was the point? The attack loses its significance. But if they don't give Rhea a proper path back to dominance, then you risk damaging one of your top stars permanently. It's a delicate balance, and I'm genuinely curious to see how WWE navigates it. Drop a comment and let me know what you think WWE should do next with both of these women. Can we also talk about the historical significance of what we just witnessed? When we look back at WWE history, we remember the iconic attacks. We remember Stone Cold getting run over by a car. We remember Michaels getting thrown through the barber shop window. We remember Reigns and Lesnar's countless brutal encounters. Is Jade's attack on Rhea going to be remembered in the same way? Is this going to be one of those moments that defines both of their careers? I genuinely believe it could be. The visual of Rhea laid out, the intensity of the attack, the shock value of it being so unexpected, these are all elements that create memorable moments in wrestling. And if WWE follows through with this storyline properly, if they give it the time and attention it deserves, this could absolutely become one of the defining moments of this era of women's wrestling. Think about it, years from now, when we're looking back at the careers of both Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley, this moment on SmackDown might be one of the first things that comes to mind. For Jade, it's her true arrival as a main event player. For Rhea, it's the moment that tested her resilience and potentially led to her greatest evolution as a character. Here's my final question for you, and I really want you to engage with this in the comments section. Who do you think ultimately wins this feud? When all is said and done, when they've traded victories, when they've put each other through hell, when the final bell rings on their final match, who stands tall? Jade Cargill, the unstoppable force who announced herself with this brutal attack? Or Rhea Ripley, the immovable object who will undoubtedly be seeking the most vicious revenge imaginable? There's no wrong answer here because both outcomes create compelling stories. If Jade wins, she cements herself as the woman in WWE, the person who ended Rhea's reign of terror and established a new era. If Rhea wins, she proves that no matter how hard you hit her, no matter how brutally you attack her, she will always rise back up stronger than before. Both narratives are powerful, both are satisfying in different ways. What I do know is this: WWE just gave us one of the most shocking, brutal, and significant moments in recent women's wrestling history. Jade Cargill's attack on Rhea Ripley wasn't just good television, it was great television. It was the kind of moment that reminds us why we love professional wrestling, why we invest in these characters, why we care about these stories. This is the kind of content that gets people talking, that gets people debating, that gets people passionate about wrestling again. And if you made it this far in the video, you clearly care just as much as I do. So do me a favor, hit that like button to let me know you're as fired up about this as I am. Subscribe to Wrestling Zone if you haven't already because we're going to be covering every single development in this story. And drop a comment telling me your complete thoughts on everything we just discussed. Who are you supporting in this feud? What do you think motivated Jade's attack? How should Rhea respond? What does this mean for the women's division? I want to hear everything you're thinking because this community is what makes covering wrestling so incredible. The war between Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley has officially begun, and something tells me that what we saw on SmackDown is just the opening salvo. This is going to get more brutal, more intense, and more personal before it's all over. And I, for one, cannot wait to see where this goes next.